Hello, and welcome to Conversations in HERstory. My name is Camelia Clayton, Social Media and Marketing Manager for People3, a full-service diversity, equity, and inclusion firm based in Nashville, Tennessee. And might I add, a woman-owned business, which is a part of the topic we'll be discussing today. Because women have spent decades striving for equity and equality in the workforce, the goal of Conversations in HERstory is to give women an opportunity to share and reflect on their experiences and how these experiences have shaped them. For far too long, women have been disenfranchised by unequal pay and lack of representation in executive roles, in addition to the struggle to find balance between juggling home and family life in their careers. But not only that, women of color continue to be silenced and discredited for their genius and the positive impact they add to organizations across the world. We've heard the revisionist history that's been told to undermine the accomplishments women have made in the past and present. But today we have a chance to get a glimpse of what HERstory says. Now I'd like to turn it over to People3's founder and CEO, Dr. Candace Warner, who will introduce our panelists for today, and moderator Domonique Townsend.
Thank you so much, Camelia, and thank you everyone for joining us today. Please welcome our moderator and panelist and my friend Domonique Townsend. You're going to learn so much from her today. She is a working mom of four, an international speaker, an engineer. She's the founder, CEO, and chief employee experience engineer of We Optimize Work. It is a consulting firm that partners with executives to create employee experience strategies that really optimize how women and mothers in the workplace meet those work outcomes while also managing all of those life demands. She has used her purpose to really advance women in the workplace, combining her expertise as an engineer and also an expert in employee experience, and some really hard, fast numbers to kind of back that up. In her 13 years of experience, she has saved companies over $12 million. You heard that right, $12 million in lost productivity and turnover costs. She's improved employee engagement by working with organizations by over 177%. She's been selected as an Amex Founder of Change and received the Small Business Innovation Impact Award by MasterCard and Business of America. Please welcome Domonique Townsend as our moderator and as just a badass woman in the business space. We appreciate you so much, Domonique.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction.
And Sunny Bray we have now included her as part of our People3 family. She does so much to support our work at People3, and we're honored every day that she spends time with us. She is a founder and CEO of Catalyst Collective. It's a consultancy firm that equips organizations and a lot of nonprofits with tools to create more impact, increase revenue growth through marketing, development, technology services. And she was also named to the All-Star board by the Nashville Post magazine. And the MBJ, Nashville Business Journal, named her a 2021 40 Under 40 winner. And in that same year, she became a mother. And she continues to do great things in the community. She's the director of marketing for Women in Technology in Tennessee. She's an advisory board member for the Women's Fund. She's a member of Brain Trust, the Table, and the Rotary Club. Not sure when she sleeps. And she's also an alumni of both the Young Leaders Council alumni and Nashville Emerging Leaders. So please welcome Sunny Bray to the panel and look forward to learning from you always, Sunny.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Jenn Brinn is also part of the People3 family. So this little side note about Jenn. When I first started People3, I created our first website on Squarespace at 3 a.m. in the morning, and all the women business owners on this call probably know that feeling of trying to do so many things by yourself. And then when Jenn came into our world, and if you have not been to our website, please do, because it's quite amazing, I have to say. And she is responsible for that. So then she and I were staying up until 3 in the morning to do that, but she is definitely a part of our People 3 family. She is the founder and CEO of Brinnovate, so write that down. It's a strategic digital agency offering brand design, website development, online marketing services. She is a proud but super exhausted mom of little Ryman, who is 2 years old, and wife of 7 years to Annie. Jenn was honored as a 2021 40 Under 40 recipient by the Nashville Business Journal. And also, I have to say, Annie was honored this year as a 2022 Jenn's wife. She's a nonprofit board member, a really active community volunteer. She's a vice president of the South Inglewood Neighborhood Association and a board member of Nashville Emerging Leaders. And as an LGBTQ+ and women-led business owner in a very male-dominated digital and tech industry. I know Domonique knows that space too. She's a champion for just, peaceful, equitable, and inclusive communities, and we're honored that Jenn works with us every day. So Jenn, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I'm happy to be part of this family. Thank you.
Also next, my dear friend, Myles, an attorney, a businesswoman, current candidate for Chancery Court, Part 3 in Davidson County. I want everyone to stop what you're doing right now and write down the following dates. Early voting is April 13th through the 28th, and election day is May 3rd. 13th through 18th, May 3rd. Aisha is doing amazing things. She is such an advocate in the community. She has established her law practice in Nashville with a focus on construction, real estate, employment, business litigation. She currently practices at Spencer Fane and primarily litigates through the Chancery and federal court. She is mother to the beautiful and amazing Caleb, Myles, and McCartney, and also an adorable puppy, Thurgood Marshall, and honored that Aisha is with us today. She was also a Women of Influence winner last year through the Nashville Business Journal and Nashville Emerging Leaders, and serves on a variety of boards and committees and volunteers. So we're so honored that Aisha is with us today, because as you might imagine, she's pretty packed thin right now with mom and attorney and running for Chancery Court. So thank you so much for being here, friend.
Thank you so much, Candace and the People 3 company, for allowing me the opportunity to come and speak about HERstory. I'm really excited to be here. And thank you for that plug about voting. It's really important. So I appreciate that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Aisha. Also welcome to the screen, Stacey Lanier. Stacey and I just met in the last 6 months, but already she is a hero. She is your therapist. She's a licensed professional counselor, a trauma expert, a psychotherapy group practice owner. She is the CEO of Truth Empowered Counseling and Wellness, and also the co-founder of Atelier, which is a wellness co-working space. So if you have not had a chance to see that, please reach out to her. She's on a mission to destigmatize, decolonize, and demystify the therapeutic journey by helping other therapists heal and sharing her therapist thoughts through social media and her blog, staceymayer.com. And Stacey and I also know each other through an organization which Sunny is also a part of, and Domonique, Brain Trust. Please welcome Stacey, and we look so forward to hearing from you today, Stacey. Thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you so much. What a wonderful introduction. I'm excited to be here and learn from these other ladies.
Thank you, Stacey. Also, please welcome Raven Hernandez. Raven, we are so excited that you're here. She is the founder and CEO of Earth Rides, which if you have not utilized this app, please do. I have used it, and chances are you'll get to ride in a Tesla, so it's super awesome. It's the only all-electric ride-hailing app, and alongside her partner, Peter Smith, they launched Earth Rides in October 2020. A really great and interesting interesting time to launch a business. So I love that. I love that about her story in her hometown, which is Nashville, to really provide an eco-friendly transportation alternative. She's a first-generation Latina American and a graduate of Pepperdine Caruso School of Law. And prior to launching Earthrides, she worked as an attorney at a female-owned law firm. And their mission is just to accelerate the adoption of electric vehicles, especially through this ride-sharing ecosystem. And we're so honored to hear from Raven today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right, Domonique, I'm turning it over to you.
What amazing introductions. I am very excited to moderate this panel discussion of phenomenal women on the impact of workplace and societal inequities on the professional and personal lives of women in America. So in America. So what I would like to do is ask a few questions. And if you have any questions that you would like to ask in the chat, feel free to put them in the chat and we'll incorporate that. And if time does not permit, we will be doing a follow-up with questions and answers that will be provided with insight from the panel discussion. So let's kick off with the first questions. What actions do you take in your own workplaces to help cultivate diverse, equitable, and inclusive environments for yourself and other women? And for that question, I'll start with you, Sunny.
Thank you, Domonique. First, I will say that probably 95% of our partners, consultants, members of our collective are women and minority-owned businesses. I personally work to make sure that I'm mentioning females and diverse business leaders in rooms of opportunity. When that comes to panel opportunities, speaking opportunities, how am I uplifting the voices of other women? We're living in a very interesting time with a lot that has happened in the last couple of years. And I think that there is a spotlight on not only females, but minority leaders. And it's up to us that when we do have a seat at the table, what are we doing? How are we helping other women get access and have those same opportunities? I think the mindset of some of the older generation of these young women need to work for it. They need to earn it. That's not fair. That's not the mindset that I play into. I want to work in the space of helping other women get there faster, easier, quicker. And we should be supporting one another. It's hard enough as it is.
Yeah.
Thank you for your insight on that. And Jenn, would you like to add on to that conversation?
Yeah, it's interesting, Sunny, that you did that math, because in preparation for this too, I counted up my clients, and 75% of my client roster are companies either run by, founded by, executive directed by female owners. And being an LGBT plus business owner myself, I intentionally seek out these partnerships and client relationships. And I have the luxury of being selective about who I partner with in my business, and always give preference, of course, to diversity and female business owners when possible, because the essence of my job is making my clients elevating my clients and making them look good and bringing out the best in them externally. And so every chance that I can get to do that for a female owned business, that is a service and a responsibility that I don't take lightly. Just making us look good externally all the time. Yeah, and just seeking out those partnerships as frequently as possible.
Thank you, Jenn. And we'll wrap this question up with feedback from Stacey on answering this particular question.
Thank you, Domonique. I mean, when you ask that question, I think immediately, who run the world? Girls. And so, what we do, and the reason that I started my business was because it was something I needed at a certain time in my life that I could not find. I needed a Black female therapist in private practice. And 20 years ago, that was really, really rare. And so I started my business for that reason, to meet the needs of other women who look like me, who might be going things. And then women who were are service providers or therapists, nurses, doctors, who are the people others lean on and gain strength and encouragement from, who also need that themselves. And I really feel like when we're operating from our best selves, when we can get things out of the way as women, we can expand, our reach further. Like Sunny said, I want to help women get there faster, make it easier, remove some of the barriers. And so we start by, what's going on with our mental health, because we carry so much with us. And hiring women who, a diverse group of women, some who look like me, some who don't, but just being a Black woman business owner who is, striving for success, I feel like is important as we, share kind of our mission and our passion in this world.
Oh, valuable feedback. Thank you so much, Stacey. So what I had 3 key takeaways from this particular question that I heard. Sunny, of just utilizing your platform to mention people's names that are in your network, providing that that faster, quicker. Yes, I believe in, we always say like our ancestors paid the cost, and we shouldn't have to pay the exact same cost. We should pay lesser of a cost. What they went through, the struggle and the compromise that they experienced, they did that so we didn't have to pay as much of cost. I'm trying to get my analogies together, but I love that you're utilizing that platform with that. And Jenn, I love that you said being selective with who you work with, and that shifts, that allows other people to see how they can shift and adapt. Because if people do not change or set those boundaries or expectations in place with who they work with, then companies will continue to be the same and not look at the importance of creating diverse and equitable workplaces. And Stacey, with you wrapping it up, creating a workplace that meets the needs and the challenges that you face, and being the solution that you sought in your industry. And I absolutely love that. So we'll continue on with the next question. And let's see here. Now, if you feel comfortable to share, as a woman of color, what have been your greatest challenges in fighting for not only gender equity, but racial equality? Or how do you position yourself to be an ally for women of color in the workplace? And I'll start with you, Aisha.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for that very poignant question. And, I will say that perception is something that as a woman of color, you face when you are, at least I found one of my greatest challenges when it comes to equity and equality for both gender and race. I think that we see it in the confirmation hearings of Judge Brown Jackson. It doesn't matter sometimes that you are the most qualified and have the most experience, because you come in looking different than, you're the different one in the room, and they don't necessarily expect you to be in that space. You often find yourself combating some things that you did not necessarily anticipate. And that happens in legal practice and in the law. I am in a male-dominated section of the law in construction law, so dealing with GCs and subcontractors and developers and owners who are oftentimes men, oftentimes, majority men, and, me coming in and saying, okay, we're going to negotiate this deal, and I have to have the best deal for my client, and no, I won't get you any coffee. Right. And so it's making sure that when we do walk into the room, we change that perception of, number one, what a woman can do and what she can be. And as a woman of color, who I will be and the stance that I will take, and I found that to be the most challenging, in my practice, and also, frankly, campaigning. It's really changing the perception of what we think that women can be and women of color should be, you know, in American society, and what I just read Candace's chat. I'm sorry about the whole getting coffee. But what women can be and what they will be, and the roles that we will take in this society. And I just want to capitalize a little bit on what Sunny Bray said about, you know, our generation. We have a different philosophy when it comes to how we help other women come up. And I think it is a beautiful thing. And it is a generational gap. I have found that the older generation thinks you really do have to pay your dues before you are able to have a seat at the table. And it really doesn't necessarily mean your qualifications or your experiences or the diverse perspective that you bring to the table. It's if you haven't, you know, done 30 years, then you don't deserve to be here. And that is something that I think this younger generation of women business owners and civic leaders we don't subscribe to that philosophy. And so I know in my work, I work with younger, diverse associates. You know, I have one who I work with in particularly because I'm a Black woman in construction, and I want to make sure that when I move on to do something else, that there is still a Black woman in construction who fills that space, because there are other, you know, minority companies, DBEs, who want to work with a woman in construction. They want to work with a woman of color in construction. So I think it's very important that when we are in a space that we can create, you know, a door or turn and pull, that we are creating opportunities for others within that space. So as we grow, the organization doesn't stop growing. We are grooming up our successors to come and take our place and take it to the higher level, you know, from where we left it. You know, they can go to a higher level than even we were able to accomplish.
Thank you so much for your feedback, Aisha, on that's very powerful. Let's round the question with Sunny.
I agree wholeheartedly with everything that Aisha just said, and I totally understand why she is in the position that she's in. I'm excited for our future of our national community with hopefully her leadership. To kind of piggyback off of what she mentioned, I too feel like I have oftentimes been the only woman in the room, coming from a tech background, the only woman, and more often the only minority in the room. And I think as women, it's the feedback or the suggestions and the recommendations that I've gotten from an older generation is, you know, you have to be careful. There's a balance between speaking up and being submissive, and how you show up and how you're perceived. And I think this next generation doesn't care about that. I think we're willing to speak up, and I know for me personally, I'm okay with being a little disruptive and calling it out how I see it, because I think being quiet it hasn't gotten what we want accomplished. So what's the harm in speaking up? In terms of, you know, what challenges have I faced in fighting for not only gender equity, but racial equity, and how do I position myself to be an ally for women of color in the workplace? Me as an Asian American woman has been educating people on the discrimination and the biases on the AAPI community. I think we are a invisible race, often seen as the model minority. The Asian attacks that are still taking place are not talked about. And so for me, it's, you know, how am I actively working to advocate other minority leaders? It's not my position to educate people on racial discrimination. It's my responsibility to use my platform and the relationships that I have to engage other people, to make sure that there are other opportunities. So it's speaking on panels like this. It's creating more visibility for other minority leaders. It's being a part of DEI and I committees, being a part of organizations like The Table, that the mission is to create opportunities of prosperity for people of color. What can I personally do to drive that change?
Thank you so much. The two key takeaways that I hear with Aisha saying, just making sure that when we walk in the room that we shift the perception of what we've been stereotyped as in the history in our industry. I know as an engineer entering in the workplace, the company had this big diversity initiative, but even out of that initiative, I was the only Black female in the flour mill. And my personality was judged of whether or not I would be successful, not the actual outcomes that I produced. So having to navigate those challenges and just show them what you're capable of, and show them who you are, not to prove them wrong, but to show them who you are for yourself. And I think in that you shift the environments that are around you. I love the mission of just being willing to speak up and be disruptive. It's very uncomfortable. It's easier said than done, but it's worth it. And I love the mission of being disruptive, Sunny, when you talked about that and how you're positioning yourself. So I'll continue the question, and I wanted to start with Raven on the next question. Let's see. So according to a recent study, 114% more women have become self-employed and started their own businesses than 20 years ago. So from your point of view, why do you think this happened, and what factors led you to create your own business? And I would love to start with you, Raven, to hear your journey in creating EarthRides.
Yeah, and I think was it you who in the beginning of this said, we're not supposed to pay exactly what our ancestors have paid.
Yes.
And I think that's just so true. My ancestors are very new to this country. I'm a first generation American, and my grandmother stopped going to school at 8 years old to work and to remove her mother from the jungle. No running water, no electricity. I mean, the whole nines, right? And at 8 years old. And so obviously my mother did not have to pay that, but she had to pay in a lot of other ways. And so when we think about why women are starting businesses, one, it's because our mothers have worked their asses off, and our grandmothers for us to do this. And when I think about how hard they've worked, best believe I have to go and reach after all that life has to offer. It's almost a disservice if I don't. It's almost like, why did you leave that jungle at 8 years old? Why did you go, walk to the city by yourself if I wasn't supposed to do everything I could to go after my dreams? But I personally started Earth because, quite frankly, because I walked into a law firm. I was in school in California, and I walked into an interview, and as I walked in, the hiring attorney was cussing out a junior associate at the interview, right before he interviewed me. And I thought, I'm not working here. And quite frankly, I don't know if I even want to, I had already been questioning the practice of law for me personally. And so that kind of solidified my answer, like, yeah, this isn't for me. And that's okay. I learned what I needed to learn, and I was able to get the benefits of law school that I needed. But I wanted to chase after my own dreams, and I wanted to believe in myself and pour everything into, betting on me. And I see that time and time again. I mean, in law school, the majority, 60% of students are female. So, it's betting on themselves. Women are taking chances on themselves more and more and time again, because we see that we haven't been in charge for a very long time. And there's a lot that needs to be fixed because of that. We bring mindfulness to the table where men, that's just not their forte, and that's okay. But it's time that we are at a place of leadership, because there's some things that need to be brought to the table that have been missing for far too long.
So good. So good. Let's continue this question with Stacey.
Gosh, I was just about to type in the chat, amen, Raven. There are some things that need to be changed for sure. And I loved what you said about betting on yourself. You know, it took me 3 times to get my practice right. And I didn't know what I was doing when I started. I didn't even know the questions to ask. I didn't know what answers I needed. But I knew I wanted to bet on myself, and it took me a minute to go all in. But you know, and that was a result of some of the racial microaggressions that I experienced as I was working in nonprofit agencies. The majority of social workers, counselors, therapists are women. Large minority or a large minority are Black women. And yet in leadership in nonprofits, if you look at them, leadership is usually majority white women and the service providers are Black women serving a minority group in providing services. And so there were so many times when I wanted to speak up, or I tried to speak up, and I was, you know, shut down and basically told to, you know, sit down, be quiet. You can work your butt off and seeing clients and being in the community and connecting, and yet there's no space at the table for you to actually speak. And that is what really drove me out of agency work and into my own practice. But now, you know, now again, being able to have a voice, finally, I made my own table, right? That's what we do when we bet on ourselves. We make our own table. And, you know, and now I can speak, and now I must speak on these things that are important to me and other women of color, because we can do it. We can make our own tables, which then, of course, extend, you know, outward to our circle of influence.
Thank you. And we'll continue this question with Sunny.
Why did I start my business? A lot of different reasons. I think a lot of it dates back. I didn't see myself as an entrepreneur. Let's just start there. I saw myself as more of an intrapreneur. Had always been told that you're very entrepreneurial, you have an entrepreneurial spirit, but I had no desire to be a business owner. I kind of fell into it. It was basically, I saw an opportunity, I saw a need. I was in an environment where things were being done completely wrong, and I saw them being done better, more effectively. I was tired of. I would also say a lot of that attributed to my own personal faith journey and how God has played a role in my center and just my purpose and my passion, my impact that I want to continually have, and the legacy I want to leave in this world. But it's also, I was really tired of working for men with a lack of integrity. I have helped many companies grow and scale into new markets, and they were often led by white men with large egos. And when I started my company, I had something to prove. I really did. I think, you know, tell me I can't do something, and I will show you that I can. That's probably a big driver for me. I'm a very competitive person, so I will prove you wrong. You know, and I'm very passionate about supporting people and businesses that I believe in. And I wanted kind of, I think what Jenn said earlier, very selective with who she chooses to work with. And now having my own business, I have that opportunity. I get to align myself with people and businesses that align with my values. And I'm happy with that.
And that's our ultimate goal, our ultimate mission are right there. Just being happy in operating in alignment and giving ourselves that permission to pivot in directions that we know we can make impact, but also create an environment where we can flourish. And I'm hearing that theme throughout this conversation. Aisha, I would love to learn about, like, tell us more about your journey in now you're seeking leadership roles with in the political space, but you're just paving the way in so many ways in your capacity. Love to know more about what your journey, what led you to pursue going towards the election.
Yeah, so, I'm a firm believer that, the judicial system is the only thing that people can go to when they have a dispute. And, when you walk in the doors of that courtroom and nobody looks like you have just an innate feeling inside that this might not turn out well for me. And when we look at the law, I love the fact that more women are going to law school, because there was a time when even the profession itself was heavily dominated by men and white men, But when we flip it on its head and we look at minorities and minority women, there aren't that many lawyers. There definitely are not that many judges. And, or women of color, frankly, that are judges here, especially in Davidson County. So when you look at our judiciary as a whole, we have very few women of color. If you look at the population of Nashville, we have many women of color in Nashville. And that whole perspective is not represented in certain courts. So even if you think about a business, like consumer marketing, you look to who your consumer is to kind of look what their needs are and be able to effectively meet their needs. Well, if you kind of put that same hat on and look at the judiciary, and granted, judges impartially apply the law, right? But their life, their view, their perspectives come into play when they are even reading the law. So for the history of Davidson County, at least on our civil courts or civil trial courts, there's never been a woman of color to bring the perspective that women of color bring to the law when it comes to the judiciary. And so I want everyone to walk into any courtroom here in Davidson County and feel like they belong, and this is what I think that women and when we think just the way we look at things, we are just a more inclusive, most of us. I won't do a blanket statement because not everyone, subscribes to that. But I do, when you think of the younger generation of women, I feel comfortable in saying that we are more inclusive, and so when we think about the law, we want the law to be an inclusive place for everyone, because you can't go anywhere else to get your dispute resolved, right? You can go to arbitration, but the statistics in arbitration is even worse than it is in the judiciary with finding a woman or a person of color as an arbitrator. And then if you go to the federal appointments, those are appointed by the president, so it depends on who's in office with what your federal judiciary is going to look like. And so I believe that the people of any community have the right to walk into a government building and see someone that looks like them, have a perspective that represents them in order to feel like that place is for them. And we think about Lady Justice's scales being blind and equitable for all. Can she truly be that way if not all people are represented, in the decision-making seats at that table? And I would say that she can't truly be fair and equitable for everyone until there are more people of color, more representation of the community there, making those decisions. So that's why I decided to run.
And are you going to run for president anytime soon? I love everything about that. And you're so right, especially with the growth of we have the growth of women businesses. And then if you face a situation where you have to go to Chancery Court and you don't feel like you belong, then what does that mean for you? Or what do you feel like you will continue the journey in pursuing this path that, you know, I believe in myself. That's why I started this business. I have this impact that I want to make. And if there's an issue that you face, you don't see yourself in that setting or feel like someone gets you or understands the barriers that you're facing on top of what's happening within that environment. So I loved everything that you said about it. We will wrap up this question with Jenn. I love to learn more about your journey, what led you to pursue business, and why you make the impact that you make today.
Yeah, thanks. I echo all the women that have come before me in what they've said. Going back to the question, I think it would be interesting to look at the ages of these women in this 114% increase to understand who their mothers were, because several of you have talked so far about, you know, our ancestors or those that have come before us. And it was only like in the early 70s that women really started going to college and higher education and getting into careers that were more than just secretarial or, you know, hourly to some degree. It was our mothers who really started pursuing professions. And growing up with a mother who wasn't necessarily in a profession, but she certainly was more than just someone having a job that she needed until she got pregnant to have kids. It showed me that her really being the first generation and the age of most of the women here on this call, they were really the first generation to be instituted in a workplace and have this pressure, this idea to have a career and not just a job. And so while my mom didn't do that, you know, there weren't a lot of CEOs and female representation and leadership back in the early 80s, she showed me that it's possible and that she did that work, like we've talked about here previously in the last few minutes, that she did that work to sort of open that door, at least open the possibility to say that I don't have to just work at a company, I can be the company. And so taking that initiative to believe in myself and put it all on the line and say, I can do this. What do I have to lose? There were those barriers that someone else before me, my mom, y'all's moms, you know, broke those down by entering the workforce in an intentional and purposeful way. That I think just leading by that example. Oh, and plus the fact that these women being career-minded in the early 70s are coming right off the women's liberation movement. I know, you know, one of my first books I read was Letters to a Young Feminist, and thinking up, okay, I've got to be a woman and I've got, like you, Sunny, I've got something to prove. And either for myself, and really that's it, is proving it to myself that it can be done. So I left corporate America to start my own company because I really wanted the flexibility. I wanted to have a work-life balance that was within my control. Being a mom to a young kid, I don't know how you women that go into an office and report to somebody and you have children, like, I don't know how you do it. I mean, I bow in admiration because this flexibility that I have being self-employed, I don't know how I could do it in a 9-to-5. And so, yeah, I think just having the potential that my mom instilled, that it was possible to be a business owner, combined with being born into the digital revolution at this magical time, just boom, the digital marketing agency owner was created. Yeah, so I knew there was no good reason not to try. You know, like I said, those barriers were kind of torn down a little bit, and what do you have to lose? So just going for it.
And beautiful. Every last one of you have said some very powerful and profound statements that are like, if you had a moment today, you're going to leave definitely inspired and rejuvenated. You need to hear that. We have to talk about our journey. We say this is why we do what we do, but we know that it's bigger than us. And each and every one of you are, when you're talking about it, you're the representation of that, making that, doing something that's bigger than you. And I love the show me what that is possible. That is key. People can only be what they see. And in many of our areas, we are paving the way in our own way, where we are the first, so we are of the few. And it just emphasizes the importance of keeping going, because it's bigger than us. But look what this does for people in this space, so they won't have to face the same challenges that we face. Our daughters have to face the same challenges, our cousins, our sisters, you know, all of that. So I'm telling you, these conversations are so needed, and I greatly appreciate it. So the next question is it's more like with work-life balance. So, and we'll start with you, Jenn, on this one. There's a lot of research about women making career transitions or opting out of the workplace altogether during and post COVID-19 pandemic, citing work and family balance. I know you spoke about flexibility and creating more of that to have that work-life balance. And when many women took on virtual learning instruction for their children while working full-time from home. What are the current challenges that women are experiencing in work-family life balance?
Well, I can tell you we're going to need more time than what we have here in the last 15 minutes to cover that. And I would not have any place to speak on this if this conversation were happening 2.5 years ago. So my son's 2.5. And I'll be honest, before I had a kid, I would look at other moms in the workplace and be like, how is it really that hard? You're kidding. You're just making an excuse. I take responsibility for the judgment that I passed, but now being in it, and understanding what really it takes to be a full-time mom and a full-time business owner or a full-time career woman, it's impossible. The system just wasn't made for us. This 9 to 5, my day doesn't start at 9. I think Welch's did a study, the grape juice jelly company did a study that said just being a mom is 2.5 full-time jobs. So you take 2.5 full-time jobs just being a mom, then you've got your real job. So that's 3.5 jobs. Throw in being a pandemic elementary school teacher or otherwise, this is probably another half a job. If you're a business owner, forget it. That's a whole nother hat you got to wear. So we're looking at like 6 or 7 jobs, full-time jobs.
Oh, if you're breastfeeding, that's another full-time job too.
So you've got all of these jobs, and A, there's not enough time in the day, and B, the structure of the system is not meant, it wasn't built for us. So I just find that being everything I come across, either meetings that need to be had, board meetings that are scheduled. I can't be somewhere from 6 to 7, that's dinner time. But, I still feel like there's this stigma that I can't just say, guys, I'm a mom, schedule around me, because there's still that judgment externally being passed on us. So I think that challenge is that we just don't take into consideration, or we do, but the rest of the world doesn't take into consideration that our life doesn't operate on a normal calendar or a normal time frame. There's a saying in psychology that says you're only as happy as your unhappiest child. And I feel like I'm only as happy as much as I feel like I have everything under control. So if everything's spinning and I've got all this going crazy, I'm not happy. But if I feel like I can manage these 7 jobs, that's where I can get my mental health sort of in equilibrium. But yeah, it is incredibly, incredibly difficult to be a career woman in this time. And I'm certain for every time before us. The internet's helped, the technology's helped, having virtual meetings has helped. But I can't think of a more challenging time in my life than trying to be a business owner and a great mom and having to try to be both, or choosing to be a good mother and choosing to be a good provider all at the same time. Men never had this problem, they still don't have this problem. Luckily, I'm married to a woman, so we have our own challenges with that. It's not any easier, I'll say that. But yeah, men never, we don't have any role models really of how this is supposed to be done, to be full-time women, full-time career women, and then also full-time moms. I still don't think we have a lot of great examples to follow.
Yeah. Aisha, I want to continue this question with you.
Yeah, so homeschool, so my children are 15, 8, and 6. So during shutdown, I still had a full caseload, and I was teaching school, and I just, I thought I could do it all. And that is so untrue. And, it was kind of this awakening that, like being a teacher is really hard. I had a newfound appreciation for my children's teachers and was really excited when everybody left the house again and went back to school. But I do think that time unearthed what women have struggled with being having any kind of job outside of the home and then rearing your children and caring for the home. And, you know, Jen, like you said, it really wasn't set up for women to do anything but be in the home. And unfortunately, our society has not caught up with the fact that women are not in the home anymore. Some women are stay-at-home mothers, but most women work outside of the home or have careers outside of the home. And, you know, I was at an event yesterday evening and was speaking with a woman who we were talking about this exact same thing, about how the woman and the mother is still the heart of the home. When the child is sick, most oftentimes they want the mom, you know, and the dad can be very active, or they want that nurturing parent, you know, to be there with them. And so you may have to drop what you're doing in order to go and see about that child, because you're not happy if your child is unhappy. You will not have focus. You won't be able to get, you know, the project done if somebody is at home crying and it's a child. And it would be lovely if employers and, you know, those employers of, you know, larger institutions could give the type of grace that they want to take when their own child is sick. They want to be able to leave and do whatever they need to do, but the staff has to stay. And I remember when our firm came back, and they came back before we were acquired, right at summer break, right when it was time for the kids to come out of school. All of the, you know, assistants had been working at home, and then they had to come back right at that time. And, you know, I wasn't making the rules, but, you know, for my assistant, I remember telling her, look, I'm still working at home, so I don't understand why you have to be back. You know, it didn't make sense for her to be in the office and I was still at home because my kids were at home, you know, and it's just having that awareness and being sensitive to, you know, your staff, to those persons who maybe are not in upper management, that they still are having those same challenges now that we are all coming back to work, you know. So there has to be some conversation around, you know, if you're getting the same productivity that you were, probably more productivity because people were working way more when they were at home than they were when they're in the office, then why are we changing things? Why are we not being flexible? If the work is still getting done, the quality of work is still there, why are we making people sacrifice, you know, their children basically to be in the office when the pandemic has proven that we don't have to be all in the same space? So I think that those issues are still there. And I think that women and caregivers are still experiencing those issues. And it would be great if their employers could, you know, kind of say, it was working fine in 2020. You know, let's keep, if someone needs it, there's no reason for us to all be back in.
Yes, and I definitely can add on with this particular question. I thank you so much for your feedback on that and valuable insight. As a mom of four, my children are now 12, 10, 8, and 3. And when the virtual schooling happened, everything was sudden. We were not equipped with the technology immediately to take care of those things. So we were managing between the laptop that was used for business and phones, and those challenges in managing that. What I noticed is just the lack of attention, or the lack of empathy, the lack of awareness expressed in the mom is always the one who's figuring it out. Why is this a default role, or is it a default role? What happens to where moms always have to figure it out or try to identify a solution to kind of like navigate? And from a challenge, I believe that the work-life challenge exists because we're trying to satisfy this standard societal narrative in how we should operate our life. And so that guilt comes in and the shame comes in and all of these factors come in, and there's not enough courageous leaders to say, I see you and I know that you're producing your outcomes and you're doing this. If you say you need to pick up your child early, or if you say you have to manage your children in virtual schooling, I don't discount the value that you contribute because of that. And that is just so much that it becomes even greater of a challenge to experience trying to mom and people and satisfy this picture of what people see as successful. And it doesn't involve having a limited capacity. And so it's around the clock availability, all of these things, and we're supposed to have a smile with it. And no one, not many people give us permission to do that. And when you define it for yourself, it becomes uncomfortable because when you operate, it's like research. If you operate in authenticity, the world is more apt to see a negative perception of you than a positive, because it doesn't fit into a box or a label. So that those challenges being a mom and having to these boxes that have been defined for us that were not defined by women or moms, and satisfying the traditional workplace setting while trying to drive impact, manage family, and then keep your head above water for yourself. I think that it's unfortunate thing that is still an existing challenge, but is what part do we say, okay, how do we, like Sunny was saying, just disrupt it as a parent? But knowing if you're out there and you're experiencing these challenges and you're experiencing that the shame or the guilt that's associated with it, you're not alone. We are, I think, as we show up in our authenticity, we help pave the way in that. But also just know that when you do that, that people are, we're challenging a narrative that is not defined by us. So just make sure to just look and see, okay, what can I do? What am I capable of doing? This is what I'm comfortable with. I'm hitting my outcomes. Have those conversations with leaders. And if you have a leader that lacks empathy, if there's someone that can be a sponsor, or someone that's an ally within the workplace to just talk to, or found people or network of people that you can communicate with and be transparent, and have that outlet so you can reduce that level of shame and guilt that comes along with the challenge of just managing and wearing all of these hats. But never ever discount yourself and your success and all of those things for the attendees that are out there that are managing children while working and trying to run a business and do all the things. Don't let anyone stop you in your way. You know what you're capable of, and so keep going with that. We'll wrap up with the final thoughts on one thing, and let me find it. If you could let people know one thing about women's experience in America, what would it be? And I will start it with you, Stacey.
Wow, what a great question. This whole conversation, in this year 52, I've decided that I'm going to start saying and doing things that, older women I've seen in my history do. And this whole conversation makes me say, woo, child. I'm hoping that, that we continue to have these conversations because they're so necessary, to encourage other women to keep going, to bet on themselves, to believe in themselves, and not to believe the lies that they are fed, and the messaging, overtly and subtly as well. And I just really encourage moms and female entrepreneurs to, do your own work. We have work that we need to do to resolve the things that have happened to us in our past that stand between us and success, and betting on ourselves and going all in. And we don't have to let those things or allow those things continue to be barriers. To acknowledge that we've been through some things, some trauma, horrible things have happened to us. And yes, here we are still. And the world needs to hear our story. There are people who need to hear our story, women, little girls who need to hear our story so they know that they can continue. And those are just lies, from what happens to them. So, of course, as a therapist, I encourage everyone to find a really good therapist so that they can move those things out of the way so they can be their best selves.
Ooh, that's a whole, Yeah, so these questions, it's like you can really go into some deep conversations on that. But I love the mission of therapy and people giving themselves permission to open up to someone and acknowledge what you go through as a trauma. We even label our categorize what a trauma is versus not trauma, depending on what that looks like or feels like. And so that's something that we have to have this conversation in as well. Raven, we'll move on to you next. In the one thing you see, like, what do you want people to know about the women's experience in America?
And there's just so much opportunity and to take it and to take a seat at the table, because right now, some people aren't sitting down and we're playing musical chairs. So grab that seat. And people are also giving us, you know, the opportunity to come through the door. I'm very thankful. I love being Latina American, because I know when I'm in that room, almost 100% of the time, I'm going to be the only person that looks like me, that thinks like me. And so that gives me an opportunity to represent and to capture the audience in a way that no one else can in that room. And so taking advantage of the opportunity to have a unique perspective and to bring that unique perspective, right? There's so many opportunities here in the US that we are afforded that, you know, in other countries, they're just not able. So taking advantage of those opportunities.
I love that. Be bold in taking the opportunity. Jenn, we'll move on to you next for the experience that you would like people to know about the women's experience in America.
There was a song that came out about 2 years ago by a female power group called the High Women. And the song is called Redesigning Women. And I'll just read you 3 of the lines from the song, because it has encapsulated my experience as a working woman in America. And it says, "We're running the world while we're cleaning up the kitchen, making bank, shaking hands, and driving 80, trying to get home just to feed the baby." And I'll leave you with that.
I like that. I wish you would have sung that the lyric that you read, but we'll do that for the next time.
Thank you. Yeah. On the whiskey. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. And we'll move on to Sunny.
I don't need to talk about the challenges that women face to a room full of women. Women already understand it. It's I'm speaking to the choir. But you know, to Stacey's point, it took me years to see a therapist, years, because of my own kind of stigma around it. And now I do. I actually see a therapist today through Stacey's company, Truth Empowered. And it is a time in my week that I look forward to. And I wish I would have seen her years ago. You know, I think women, don't shame yourself. And don't should yourself. I use the example of, I struggled, you know, I should be able to clean my house. I should be able to take care of my baby. I should be able to grow a business and keep my husband happy and maintain my friendships. And I should be able to do all of these things. And, you know, it's not necessarily about, I hate the phrase of like, oh yes, I make compromises, I make sacrifices. No. You have priorities and you have values and you set boundaries, you know, and do what works best for you. And what works for you looks different than it does for another woman. And that's okay. And, you know, I am tired and I'm doing it all. And that's fine. And that's because, you know, I'm a control freak and I like to control things. And sometimes in order to get things done, I have to do it, and that's fine. But, you know, I think the reason why a lot of women are tired is, I heard the example recently is, you know, we could be doing the dishes, but while we're doing the dishes, we're thinking about what we need to get from the grocery store. And so it's like our minds are just constantly going. I know for me personally, I struggle with the mom guilt, the mom shame. I have an 18-month-old, so I'm still learning how this works. And you know, my values, my goals, my ambitions, they've shifted a little bit. And That's okay. But I'm showing up in a way that I want my daughter to be proud. I'm showing up in a way where I want other women to see someone that looks like me. When I was younger, I wanted to be a professional figure skater. And you know why I thought that that was even a possibility was because I saw Chris Yamaguchi and Michelle Kwan. And so I want to be that for someone else.
I love that. The biggest point out of that is just show up in ways that that align with you, and because we're in this thing, and especially being a business owner, you see if you're not hustling or grinding around the clock, you're taking away from an opportunity that's for you, and it's like changing that narrative by showing up in what works for you and how you operate is what matters, and it shows and it gives permission to the other person to say, oh, I can do it like this. And I guarantee that anyone on this, and then the attendees, the panel, our 3 hours will outdo anyone's 24 hours if we focus focus our time on those particular things and we do it. We're just being very clear. It's not about the around the clock. It's about the quality of what we do within that time, but what we prioritize. And it's okay for us. If tomorrow you say, you know what, I'm gonna do a spa day and watch Netflix, it doesn't mean that you're not successful and you're lacking in the grind or the hustle. It's what works for you, and it's literally saving lives, because you can lose it if you don't do that for yourself. So it's those things that we have to keep reminding ourselves. So thank you for everyone for your thoughts, and we're going to wrap it up with Aisha. Love to get your perspective on women experiences in America, and what's one thing you would like to share.
So I think that everything that everyone has said has been so on point and true. And I talk to my therapist every Sunday, and I feel like she is my best friend. And I know she's not, but like, I feel like she's my best friend. So get a good therapist. It's really therapeutic. But the one thing that I say that is a difference that I see in our generation versus, like, let's say my mom's generation. We are okay with being authentically ourselves. And we are not afraid to show you who we are. And there is power in that, in just being you. There is no one else in the world who is just like you, who can do exactly what you do, and I believe who can do what you were purposed to do. So I think that I love the fact that we are having an awakening as women to say, you know, it's okay to be me. And I don't have to fit the molds that you say that I should fit and be in order to be quote unquote successful, because I can define success for myself. And it might be different than what you think, but it's success for me. And that allows me to thrive in my authenticity. And so, like, I love this quote by Maya Angelou, and it says, if you're always trying to be normal, you will never know how amazing you can be, right? So be amazing. You know, who defined normal anyway? The normal of yesterday is not the normal of today, and it's always a moving target. So if you always just show up as you and your authentic self, you know, you will always be on point. And I love the fact that women today, this generation of women, and hopefully our daughters, you know, will see, you know what, my mom showed up exactly who she was. She didn't change to fit anybody's mold. She was herself. And I think that that's powerful as we embrace that and walk in that. So yeah, this has been amazing. You know, to all the moms, all the professionals, you know, we're wearing so many hats. And I just think we should give ourselves a pat on the back, a glass of wine, whatever. Maybe I like Jack Daniels, you know, but be authentically you. And, you know, we're doing so much, and we're doing great at what we are doing. So.
Oh, thank you. That's great wrap up with that question around the panel discussion. And I hope that each and every one of you have received nuggets of wisdom to take away from yourself, and also just showing up authentically as you. Everything that's for you is there. It's about you showing up authentic. It's not about operating in a way that someone recommended for you that doesn't align with you. The second you show up authentically, all the opportunities, all the impact, everything that you seek for yourself will come. We're at 12:38, so thank you for hanging over. We have over 58 people that have registered for this discussion, and I know I'm pumped. I needed that. You need that juice when you're around other women who have these conversations and are transparent about that. So I want to say thank you. I'm going to hand it over to Camelia, and thank you for the opportunity to moderate this panel discussion.
Domonique, thank you so much for just beautifully officiating this panel today. You're amazing, and you had so many great insights for us today. And might I just add, I just feel completely empowered. The inner child in me is just jumping and screaming because I just feel so empowered. And I know everybody watching today, learned some amazing things and probably feels the same exact way. So I really just want to thank everybody for coming today. And, for more information about People 3 and our diversity, equity, and inclusion solutions, you can email us at info@people3.co. So that's .co, or you can visit our website at people3.co. And just as a reminder, all attendees and registrants for today's panel will receive a video recording of this discussion, so you can have it and take it with you. And I just want to wish everybody a happy Women's History Month. And thank you for spending an hour of your time with us today for conversations in HERstory. So thank you.